Hey all, I'm Nina Ruberti. I'm an animal communicator, intuitive energy healer, and this is my dear friend Bailey, who walks this earth plane with me, and I'm grateful that I am his guardian, and that I am happy to be here today with also my dear friend, mentor, colleague. She is a certified soul animal communicator um, and a certified soul intuitive coach, and this is Julie Hirt.
Hello, everybody. Hi. And my four-legged friend is snoozing at my feet right now, and his name is Lucas.
Yes. So I know basically Julie from taking Daniela McKenna's classes, and she was a mentor of mine. And now we have become dear friends, and we kind of do trades with different energy healing and tapping into like this sweet little one. But we are here today to basically discuss navigating grief and trauma in real time. As unfortunately, Julie has just experienced passing of her father. That was a shock to her. I don't know, maybe if you want to just say a few words about that.
Yeah, sure. So in August, he and my mom and my sister and I were actually walking outside, and he tripped and fell. And didn't, unbeknownst to us, it actually caused some things to shift. And ultimately, he passed unexpectedly about 2 weeks later from internal bleeding that they could not stop. And we did not think it was coming. My mother actually has the Alzheimer's. And so we were actually thinking that she was going to be the one to go first. And now everything is just absolutely turned upside down. And not only have we dealt with closing out my father's life, but also trying to figure out where to place my mother so that she has care, because she cannot be left alone. And so all of that. And then on top of all that, just before that, my husband lost his job. So August sucked.
Yes.
Just to put it in a nutshell. And I say that with a little bit of laughter, because at some point there's, what can you do? It's just like you just have to surrender and just go, okay, whatever it is you want me to learn, but yes, it has
Yes.
sucked. Mhm.
Yes. It's kind of like, can we do this with ease and grace and not so traumatic? Right?
Right.
All at one time. It's kind of
Right.
like, how do you navigate that? I mean, yes, my heart still goes out to you every day because I know
Thank you.
it's not easy. And it seems that a lot of people lately, because as we were discussing earlier, that there's a few people that I went to high school with that two of them that I went to high school with have passed within a day of each other. And it's maybe a long illnesses that they had, but so young. And
Yes.
as you were saying that friends who've lost their fathers. And
Yep.
okay,
Just
that's
recently
interesting
too.
because they're all males, actually.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So I wonder if
Yes.
that has to do something with the male energy and feminine energy. We'll have to tap into.
I don't know. I don't know. That might be another podcast.
Yeah, that may be another right. Because that's interesting. Because I was thinking that they're all males that because I know that we're shifting and moving into a different paradigm with energy. And I
Yeah.
think the female energy and creativeness and all that is moving forward more so than the male energy, which is of action. But it's interesting that that's the case. And
Mm.
and they work with us from the other side.
Oh,
I
totally.
know that you hear your dad and you're intuitive. So that's great.
Yeah. 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 It is great in the comfort, right? And we even experience this in pet loss, like being animal communicators. We know that there is more. And we know, because you helped me when my dad had passed, just to make sure that, because I felt like maybe he didn't have enough time to say what he needed to say. And you were wonderful and so supportive and got on the phone and in the middle of traffic, you were and connected. It was great. Um, and even though we know all of this or have experienced connections with others on the other side, when you as the human actually go through it, well, yes, there is that comfort, there is still the sadness and there's still the loss. And yes, there are times when I know he's sitting on the edge of my bed, particularly when at night, when I'm working in my, sometimes I like to sit in bed and work. I can feel him sit right there. In yoga, he was in my yoga class today. And at the same time, it's not the same because I can't kiss him on the cheek, which I would very much like to do one more
Yeah.
time, at least, well, many, many, many more times, but at least one more
Yeah.
time. So yeah.
Because it's the physical presence, it's the physical loss.
Yeah.
And you and I are fortunate because we do have that connection, which everyone does have the connection, but we know that that connection is real and that connection is true. And so you do know that your dad is sitting there with you. But most people, it's hard to really, because it's that physical loss, like you're not able to touch,
Yes.
you don't have that physical contact. And so I think we just have so much grief and the sadness and kind of that void or the hole that's in our heart
Mhm.
that's been left here as they've transitioned.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so I know that we were going to talk about all different ways of how to navigate this and how to assist, but our animals are a big, big, big component of assisting us navigating through loss or trauma or those things of losing your job, a loved one, or however it looks shows up in your life. My sister and I have just lost going through the flood in Asheville. I mean, it's amazing though, because that happened 3 months ago, but we're still at the same place really because we were waiting on funding and various things so that we're able to move forward. So you're still kind of stuck in that energy. And 3 months later, unfortunately, we do have to get a small business loan, right? And so there's no congressional funding for that. And so we're tapped out. We could do as much as we could, but then that was it, right? And so now we're still kind of at the same place. So that's also emotions that are kind of stuck. Granted, it's not the same thing of losing your father or anything like that, but it is trauma that is hit and it's grief. And how do we
Yeah.
navigate and move through that?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, you say you're waiting on stuff like, and that's part to me, that's been part of this experience too, is witnessing everyone else moving ahead. And I'm still going, hi, like I can't imagine right now I do this work full time, so I don't have to go to an office. So I can't imagine only getting 3 days bereavement. I mean, even with when my dogs have passed before, not having necessarily that time to grieve. And even with all the different works and the work that I've done so far, just in the 3 months, 4 months that he's been gone, um, there's so there I'm still going to go through this whole year of firsts is what I have a therapist, like there's a therapist involved, like, and she's like, it's going to be a year of firsts. And it's like, how do people, and then I think back to other times when people would wear black for a whole year in an effort to be able to share with people, I'm grieving, so that there was some understanding, and that doesn't happen anymore. And I'm finding, oh, that's kind of interesting, because what I know, where everybody's grieving for something, I'm guessing, for the
Mhm.
most part. So there's something in there to be able to honor. But that again, I think is another podcast conversation.
Yeah, right.
We
I
could
think
talk
that
about,
is
yeah,
another podcast conversation. And
yeah,
it is interesting because there are so many things like I forgot about, like, I remember my grandmother used to be wearing black all the time for whatever reason. And that is true, is to honor, their life.
mhm,
And but I think now we get more towards the celebration of life, right?
right,
Instead of the grieving process that we need to celebrate them every day.
yeah,
But how does that look? And it looks different for everyone. And our
exactly.
grieving looks different for everyone. And
Hmm.
I know my sister who lives in Manhattan, she was saying that New York has passed a bill or law, whatever it is, that if your animal has passed, they do have bereavement for taking time off of work when your animal has passed.
Oh wow,
Because
that's awesome.
they're our babies and they're our heart
It's,
and our soul, right?
yeah,
And so it is the same thing. You are still grieving whether someone sees that the two-legged is similar to a four-legged, it's the same. Your heart still hurts. And
yeah,
you still have that emotion and that trauma and the sadness and everything that goes along it with it.
hmm,
You walk into your home and it's quiet if it's just you and the dog or the human, or it's quiet. The energy is different.
hmm,
And it's like, how do we navigate that? How do we move forward and things? So,
yeah,
like, what are some things that you have been doing for you moving forward with your dad?
yeah. Well, first you helped me with just some Bach flower essences, I have to say, because the biggest thing for me that I have felt, um, is just feeling unmoored. And that's like the word that came to me shortly after he passed, because so where I'm sitting, he was always to the west of me. And when I lived in Alaska, he was always to the southeast. I knew all the time where he was. He didn't really go anywhere. So it was like I always knew where he was. Um, and so now that he's not here, it's like I felt like so unmoored. And the Bach flower essences helped me with grounding. And I continue, and Lucas, my dog, absolutely helps me all the time. I have to work that much harder to be grounded because there is so much either sadness or density or just feeling unmoored, whatever all the things. I mean, and there's so much, and I don't even know all the things yet. But those flower essences, as well as Lucas, just constantly, he'll either lay his body over me, or he'll be like, we have to go outside and get into nature. And there's a couple of trees that are my special friends out in the nature preserve that I'm looking at out my window, and being able to put my back up on the tree, because the chakras that are in the back are for receiving. So just to be able to receive that energy from them and have my feet feel like it's firmly grounded. I do go to conventional therapy. I also have an intuitive coach. I also have signed up for, my dad was in hospice for the last few hours of his life. And that hospice has offered bereavement group that I've attended. And then there's another gentleman, his name's David Kessler. He worked with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, and he has a workbook called Finding Meaning. And he just so happened to be on a podcast. So I have a podcast called the Animal Communication Podcast on mindbodyspirit.fm. And the woman that runs that, Diane Ray, she too has a podcast. And he just happened to be on her show. I just happened to catch it. I got the workbook and I got to do several webinars with him, which was really helpful. So it's like, I think the biggest thing for me is being open to where can help come, because for me, learning to ask for help and receiving help has been a big thing. That's not my thing. So to be able to stay in that, and then just kind of exploring. Oh, and I also have another friend who does the pet loss grief circles with me, who's a trauma informed yoga instructor. And she's helpful. She's been so helpful. My clients, my podcast hosts, everybody's been like super helpful. I mean, our teacher, Danielle McKinnon, it's just been amazing. And then I have to say, not to ramble on, but there's two other modalities that I tried. One was quantum healing, like you mentioned earlier before we got on. There's a woman that I met at a Mind Body Spirit Expo that I did last year. And so we did a trade, and she did a quantum healing and we did past life. It was so informative. And then I also worked with another colleague of ours, Anna Marie Ellison, who has healed by a horse. And I went to her retreat area for a weekend and just worked with the horses. And that helped with grounding. It helped with just releasing things that weren't mine, like intergenerational trauma that has come up. Like there's just been a whole bunch of, it's been an amazing adventure so far. It's still, the sadness is still very much there. However, I will say that and I started going to yoga again, but I'll be like in Shavasana and just start crying, because it's like in the stillness and in this work, the sadness really has room to come out and breathe.
Right.
I find. So that's been really helpful.
Well, and I think that the fact of like in the yoga, to sit quiet in the stillness is because we're rushing around. A lot of times I think society tells us that and it's just like, as you're saying, there's no time off if you have to go to an office for bereavement. I think it's like 3 days or however that is. And that's not really enough time when you're talking about your loved one. That 3 days, that's nothing. And it's like we push it down and we have to process that sadness, and then when you actually sit in the stillness, those emotions are able to bubble up and they are able to come out. And however that is like, you need to cry, you need to get angry, you need to maybe hit something or scream or yell or jump up and down. I think you're saying that like you use punk music or whatever. And, I have this sword, this styrofoam sword that I hit up against, not when he's around, but, or yell in the car or however it is to get the emotions out. Because as you and I both know, when we suppress the emotion, it can get stuck and it causes emotional blocks, which then can manifest into physical ailments, and so we have dis-ease in the body, which does actually come out into disease. I know this past, I got poison ivy, right? The past few weeks that I've had poison ivy, which is frustrating thing that I thought it was dead. We're in the middle of winter. Well, it's December. And all of a sudden, I've got poison ivy all over, and it's about boundaries, because when we go through things in life, we need to make sure that we keep those boundaries firm. Because I think that, as you are grieving, which we all grieve differently, And however it is that we do that, we need to be open to all different ways like you are, because it's so amazing the different journeys and the things that we'll experience. But we also have to keep those boundaries that, no, I need to make sure those boundaries are solid and that
Mhm.
things are not meshing through, because it's like people, yes, everyone wants to be there to help you or to assist you, however that is, but sometimes it's not, it doesn't help. I
Right.
mean, we need our time by ourselves. We need to grieve. We need to cry and just allow the tears to flow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
It's yeah. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
oh, go ahead.
It's just been it's been so interesting to me when my dogs have passed away previously. um that was it was really really hard to get through. I was in a when the last one passed before Lucas. um I went into a really deep depression. So I knew what to watch for when my dad passed. And I actually had thought, this is going to be fine because I know all the things. Like it's going to be like I'm going to be able to get through it. And then I quickly realized, oh yeah, no. And it's not like the grief is deeper, harder. It's just a different, I'm grieving something different. So like you're right, it could be a relationship, it could be a job, it could be anything. Grief to me is grief, and grief will have its say. And if I don't allow it to come out, that dis-ease, that is
Mhm.
something that I'm really worried about. And then alternately on with my mom with Alzheimer's, there's a lot of things that she expresses that's very angry.
Mm.
And a lot of the women in the facility where she is are also very angry. So that's another podcast to me, but so it's like if we don't express these emotions, if I don't allow it to do whatever it needs to do. But if I don't experience, I also think not only is it disease, but I've also not fully embraced the human journey.
Mm.
Grief is part of why we're here. And I feel like as a collective, particularly in this country, we've never learned how to express the country was built on grief. So my little thing, right? My little me, Julie, having this grief, however I can work with it, can it help the ripples go out, right? I'm going to worry here, but do the ripples go out? Because I think at some point, ultimately, we, even as a country, society, Western culture, this is a big deal we have to tap into and work to express. I wouldn't say fix, I would say express. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it's amazing though, because you and the rippling out is that when you are, like we have a certain frequency. And so, when you keep that frequency high, even when you're in grief or whatever, or however it is that you express that. But when you are able to express your sadness and your grief, you're able to help someone else along, because they will say, oh, wow, this is what I'm feeling, or this is how I am. And that then does ripple out, because then they can pass that on to someone else, and that can assist someone, as you're saying that you have, like, yes, you do the grief therapy with your dogs, with your animals in the session, and the yoga helps, and the Bach flower essences, or however it is that we are allowed to allow ourselves to feel the sadness.
Mhm.
Because I think that is a big thing, is that we don't allow ourselves to mourn, or to mourn
Right.
how we are supposed to do that for ourselves, not for anyone else,
Yeah.
but we have to do that how we do it. I mean, I know, like, yes, I've lost my father as well, right? That was 5 years
Mhm.
ago, and I know he's still here. But, it's the way I mourned as compared to my twin sisters, two different ways,
Yeah.
and you have to allow yourself to express those emotions, or do whatever it is that however that works, or
Mhm.
however you process that, because there are different outlets. And then, like with your mom, that is a whole other thing that you're having to deal with. And so you're having to navigate a whole different world,
Mhm.
and then you add Brad into it, who's lost his job, your husband, and
Yeah.
that's, and then our animals, my goodness, I mean, as you're saying, that Lucas puts his head on your chest, or his paws on your chest, or lays on you, and this one just cuddles and does whatever, and they keep
Mhm.
us so present, because we have that mind that just, what if, should I
Yeah.
have done this, should I have said this, why didn't I do this, what's going to happen? But yet you and I as intuitives know that once their spirit has passed, then they're all good, right? They
Yeah.
realize that, no, I know that you love me, and I know that we're here on a human journey.
Mhm.
and however that looks, we're here to learn lessons. And sometimes we have to get, I don't want to say it like figuratively, but knocked over the head or something harder, because it's harder for us to kind of to figure that out, or to see what it is that we're supposed to learn, because
Yeah.
maybe some of us are easier learners or harder learners than others.
Yeah.
The
Well, and
grief.
there's also, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
There's also that pressure to move on. Like, it's interesting to me, right? That however, he passed it on August 26th. And since then, all the people that I'm sure you've experienced with what's happened in Asheville, but all the people that have fallen away
Mhm.
and not, and they'll just, and no, through no fault of their own, this is conditioning, right? It's like, they'll say, how are you? And I want to answer, and I learned this in my bereavement group. What answer would you like to hear today from me?
Right.
Because I will tell you the truth, or I can make it pretty, right? Because
Right.
we don't like, as a society, to be sad. We
Right.
don't. That's why, when you said earlier celebration of life too, it reminded me that, yeah, we've gone from funerals, and we did a celebration of life because that's what my dad wanted. And absolutely I should celebrate his life. And at the
Right.
same time, sometimes we get stuck in the, oh, I can't be sad. I've even put pressure on myself, like, okay, this should be done by now. Okay,
Mhm.
why am I not able to do the things I used to do? Why do I feel like I have brain fog? What is, it's like, it is pressure I'm
Right.
putting on myself from everybody else. And we don't know
No.
really how to be in the sadness. And another quick point, I know you and I have talked about this. One of my favorite books is On Our Best Behavior by Elise Lunan, which is the 7 deadly sins and the price women pay to be good. There was an 8th deadly sin back in the day before Pope Gregory said, and it was sadness.
Oh,
So
interesting.
we didn't even, like, with that also
Right.
went away. So
Right.
there's just so much that I feel like isn't, it's an opportunity. Again, absolutely sucks. However, there's leaning into it. There's
Mhm.
just so much I feel like that to explore, even to feel. And just for me, would I love to help a million people? Sure. Absolutely. I just have to start here first. And that's just going to take some time.
Well, and it is amazing because, yeah, people do move on, but like you're still in it, right? And you're going to be in it for another year, 2 years. I mean, it's been 5 years since my dad has passed, right? And
Yeah.
it's still sad because, like, I'm gonna get teary eyed right now. From our warehouses, right? I mean, they've been in our family for 60 years, right? For
Yeah.
plus years, for as long as he's had them. And we grew up going down there with them and all this. And the other day when I was down there, it was so sad because the devastation is just like everything is flattened out. And,
Yeah.
and I was talking to my dad, but I was like, oh my goodness, just like it still comes up, right? The sadness, even though it's been however long, but it's kind of like, oh my God, Dad, you built some solid buildings. Thank you for building solid buildings. I did put
Hmm.
an energetic bubble around them. So, but to know that that is still continuing, but at the same time, it still makes me sad because, like, there were so many of the warehouses of the people he knew. Like, it's like, oh yeah, here's this person. Oh, here's this person. Here's that person, and it's all gone. And
Yeah.
so the grief still continues. I mean, we're always going to have that,
Yeah.
because the person is not in this physical realm with us, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think it just lessens, but society does not teach us how to deal with that and how to move forward in that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
which
And
is what we're trying to say as to different ways to move forward and to navigate,
yeah.
because we're here experiencing this journey and we signed up to experience all this, however it looks in our
Yeah.
life. But we have to do that like with ease and grace, right? So that you're not knocking your head up against the wall and beating yourself up because you should have moved on by now. Because
Right.
when is the appropriate time to move on? It may be 5 years from now, right? For you, but maybe that's what your soul needs,
Yeah.
and you need the nourishment and the compassion and the empathy for your own soul to do that, as
Hmm.
compared to someone else that, they're like, okay, we made peace with it and we're able to move on.
Yeah.
It's all different. So,
Yeah.
I mean, as
Yeah.
you're saying, you put a lot of pressure upon yourself, which I think society tells us to do that because, it's like, oh yeah, just pull up your big boy pants or whatever and just move on. Well, no,
Mhm.
you know what? I want to sit in the sandbox and just play with the sand for a while.
Right, right. I
Right?
know. It's so interesting to me, this pressure. And just to give myself this time.
Mm,
And you know what? It's even teaching me like, no, like, cause I'm not really good at putting myself first, but this is teaching me that I have to. So
yeah.
it's like, what even are the lessons that one can get out of grief? You know, this David Kessler that I took his workshops,
Mm,
like somebody was saying, you know, they've so-and-so's been gone for a year. Well, he's like, that's like 60 minutes in grief world.
right.
And
Yes.
I even watch too, like the language that I use, you know, I'll say moving through, moving with, not, you know, because I'm learning we never really move on, because it's not like all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, cool. There is the whole thing about dad's passing. I'm just gonna, there goes up on my bookshelf that's over there, and I'm gonna walk, like that is not gonna happen, because
No.
he's still gonna, I mean, even I think even maybe more for intuitives, because
Yes.
we can feel them around us. So it's not like he's like, not you are not leaving me behind kind of thing.
Right. He's like, I'm gonna be there with you. And I
Mm,
know exactly those milestones that are going on in your life.
yeah,
You know what's going on. And he also assists, like I do, I know with our animals. I mean, I know Bailey sees my dad,
yeah,
especially a lot when he had passed. He
yeah.
still sees him, but I don't think my dad's around as much. But our animals see our loved ones, and they'll as when you see them like looking off, you know that someone's coming through or someone's around, and that's getting their attention, which is it assists us. I think it helps us keep our heart open so that we
Mhm.
don't shut down when we lose someone.
Yeah,
Because I
yeah.
think that's one of the big things is that when we lose someone, it is so hard to get past that grief and to get
Mhm.
past that, especially if you lose a child or you lose whomever
Right.
that is, and
Yeah.
it's like, how do you move forward? But
Mhm.
I do feel that in one way that that they're at peace. They've kind of gone home and they're at peace, and they're
Yeah.
going to be nudging you from the other side as to, your life is here meant to be lived. And you are a great guardian to me, however that is, whether your mother, the father, to an animal. It's kind of like you have to honor that that was such a special relationship that you had with them, and that you were able to walk side by side in this lifetime.
Yeah.
And then they will assist us from the other realm, from
Yeah.
however that looks, that they do that, and
Yeah.
that could be that. And it's interesting though, because I know a lot of people that I've known, or I know like a lot of mentors or things like that we've had or taken courses or anything, that they usually have lost a loved one. Like there's a woman, Suzanne Geisman, that I'd taken this long retreat in Utah with when I was in
Mhm.
Wyoming, and she was like a Navy person. She was like an officer or whatever, and so she was very the spirit world, the spirit realm, but then unfortunately she lost her daughter, and then her daughter started coming to her, and she started seeing signs and all of this, and now she is fully does such transformational work with people who've lost,
Hmm.
loved ones or children or anything like that. And it's amazing the journey now that she's on, and that she's able to help people who have so much grief that they're not able to get out from underneath it, because
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
it can take you down a road, rightfully so, um, that is not, you're not able to get out from under, you know.
Right.
And
Right.
that is a lot of times, like I know what with you for the Bach Clair essences, that is a lot of times when you need help, right? And asking for help is hard to do because we're not
Mhm.
really taught to do that.
Right.
It's kind of like, oh no, I'm good, I'm fine. Well, are you? No, not
Yeah.
really,
Well,
right?
yeah. And I would say even too, as women, particularly in the Western culture, we're not encouraged to express our feelings. Like we were talking about anger before we got on, right? Like
Right.
anger. I have clients who, and it happened to me too, when I was being coached as I was learning to be an animal communicator. I remember my coach at the time said, "Where's your anger?" And I'm like, "I don't have any anger. I'm not angry." She's like, "Oh, I can feel it." And it's there. And I can feel it in clients too. And they're like, "Well, that's disappointment or that's frustration." And it's like, that be anger. And you get to pay attention to it because it wants to help you. It's not a bad thing, but that's how we've been taught. And it's interesting to me too, is that when my dad passed for the first really full month, maybe 6 weeks, it was like all hands on deck because we had to get all the, I mean, from the I got called and said he passed, and then was immediately called by the medical examiner for the death certificate. And then I had to make decisions. And then I had to make decisions as to what to do with the body, like within a span of 30 minutes. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? My dad just passed. Like, it was nuts. And this is how it works, I guess. And then, and then for that first 6 weeks, it was like all hands on deck to figure out what to do with mom, get all the care we could get until we could get her moved, to do all these. And this was like, so until Thanksgiving, when my husband actually went to see his sister, and I had 2 days by myself, that was the first that I could really feel into the sadness. So I go back to the 3 days bereavement. I'm like, well, wait a minute, y'all haven't even had a chance to be quiet with it and feel it. We just do such a disservice to ourselves as human beings. But yeah, it just feel like however much help anybody can ask for, and there's all different kinds of modalities.
Yes.
Whatever. And I would even say more than one, right? I'm trying everything that comes my way, because I'm like, oh, there's something, let's try this, let's try this. But however many things anyone can try,
Yeah.
I'm all for.
I mean, there's so like, yeah, because like I do tuning forks every morning,
Mm,
right? And tuning forks actually just calm and open the heart. But there are so, I mean, like, yes, as you're mentioning, like yoga, or
yeah,
just being out in nature, or just having the sun on your face, or, getting the anger, like you're dancing, or, using this or that. But there's so many
yeah.
different modalities as to how to um, get assistance with navigating through the grief, because
Mm-hmm.
it's not really out there. Like, I mean, I remember when my dad passed, and thankfully, like, being in this world of spiritual world and all different healing modalities that you and I know about,
Yeah.
a lot of people do not, and so they just go on about their day, just like kind of grudging, pushing through. And it's like, okay, you need to just take a moment and stop, and to acknowledge it, and
Mm-hmm.
to, kind of really like appreciate it, accept it, or however that is, because it is assisting us in our evolution of our soul, and however that is. But we are learning from this experience, and I don't know. I mean, yeah, there are just there are many modalities, but it's not an easy thing to do
Yeah.
as we're going through it,
Right.
because you can't really see past anything else but that.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. You can't see past it. You might not have people that want to help you see past it.
Right.
you know,
True.
you there's just this gotta go kind of thing. So it's how however, I mean, it's so fascinating because I do animal messages for every month
Right.
based on they're actually transforming now too, because it was based on the readings of the previous month, but now it's like, nope, we're all Lucas and the animals around me are going, nope, we're going to tell you what they are. So this month is all about slowing down and getting grounded, so which absolutely pertains to where I am. But
Mhm.
collectively too, this is naturally circadian solstice rhythm. We should be slowing down, but yet
Mhm.
we're like going at all-time high because of all the holidays and everything, which also can double down, quadruple down, whatever, on one's grief, because
Yeah.
you're like,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
not here. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And this time, it is unfortunate, and it is amazing how many people do decide to leave the earth plane around this time. So then, like, for your first, like, you have the first of Thanksgiving, the first of Christmases without him, and the first of all that, which is so hard. And then that kind of is impacted with all of that, because everything is about family, and, which is great and phenomenal. And, it's, yes, and we can lean on each other and get support, but it's also time that you need to take that time to really process it and be alone, or to be by yourself for those moments, so that you are able to like hear yourself, or feel
Yeah.
it, or how that resonates with you
Mhm.
in dealing with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Absolutely.
it's
Yeah.
a hard. It's, yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's not an easy thing to process, or to go through, or navigate.
No, and there's no silver bullet either, I will
No.
say. No, and I feel like the opportunity to be you and how you want to experience it is up to you. I would only encourage anyone to just allow yourself to experience it. Cause I feel like we just haven't been allowed. We're not
Right.
encouraged. And I feel that that's a huge disservice. And it's partly why we are where we are
Yeah.
as a
Yeah.
society. So,
I mean, I know the other day, like I was at acupuncture, and actually acupuncture is actually a great
mm,
modality or tool for releasing blockages or things that we may feel dis-ease in our body.
yeah,
You know, I had tweaked my back. I was putting Christmas lights out on my outside deck, right? And all of a sudden, due to everything that we're experiencing with the flooding and our warehouses and all of that, the root chakra, which is security and finances and all of that, of course, I tweaked my lower back. And I'm
yeah,
like, really? I got the poison ivy with the boundaries, and I've got my tweaking back. And I'm like, Bailey, I can't move right now. You know, but that's all about security, and it's your root chakra. And it's amazing because I went to my acupuncturist, and of course, she was, we did some, but it's blockages that, you all of a sudden have because we don't realize everything is energy. And
mhm,
so energetically, it kind of energetically, if we're not clearing it, then it's going to manifest in the physical realm. And so I
yeah,
was like, oh God, I know this. Thank you very much. I'm working towards this. And then it's like, no, you're not. You know? Okay, we're going to really put this into gear. But it was amazing. Acupuncture was amazing, because it is able to clear the energy out of our stagnant energy that gets stuck, because your chi does get stuck when we're sad or we have grief
yeah,
or whatever. So
yeah. Yeah.
it is
And
a
I love how Bailey just stood up and kind of stretched behind you and then laid, yeah. I'm like, I see you, Bailey. Thank you for the tip.
yes, right. Thank you very much. Yes,
Yeah.
because they assist us all the time, right?
Yeah.
Even
Yeah,
whether we're
absolutely.
aware of it or not.
Hmm.
You and I are intuitive, so we know. But for anyone that is not, your animals are there to assist you all the time.
All the time. Yep.
And
Yep.
they
Even
and
if
they
they're sick, they're helping you with something. Yeah.
yes, yes, and they try to take that energy or those emotions and transmute it, and they just keep us present and keep our
Hmm.
heart open, which is one of the main things I believe that or
Hmm.
feel to kind of process and to keep moving forward.
Yeah.
And not necessarily do we have to keep moving forward. We say that I say that all the time because
Yeah.
I don't really want my energy to get stuck when we're stagnant or standing still, but sometimes we have to stand still. We have to
Yeah.
sit. We have to sit in that stillness and just let it flow out of us.
Yeah, yeah. There's a Franciscan priest that I follow, Father Richard Rohr. I'm sure many people have heard of him. He's a mystic, but he talks a lot about the 2 steps forward and 1 step back. And we would label Western society would label the 1 step back as, oh my God, we're going backwards.
Oh,
And it's
yeah,
like, no, the 1 step back is so you can reflect on all the 2 steps that you made forward and where do you want to go next. So it's grief
right.
to me is a big step back, and yet you can still see, and I'm not trying to keep it like sugar coated because it sucks.
Yeah, yeah. It's
It's
not.
just, to me, my father also, he was divine timing that he passed. There's always a reason. To me, there's a reason why. So if I can be open to explore the reasons why and what he's still teaching me,
Mhm.
then this makes all the things that I want to do that much more.
Yes, that's
So,
beautiful.
but yeah, there's that too.
Yeah,
So,
that is beautiful. Well, and I believe that our souls, we do, we have an agreement with ourselves that we come into this earth plane and we know there are different exit points, and we
yeah,
choose when that timing is right. And our soul is time to move on, and it's unfortunate because yes, society here in the Western world does not teach us how to deal with the grief, because I do, like, look at the elephants. I mean, they've got it down, right?
right,
I mean,
right. Yep.
they know and they grieve and they allow that time and they all come together as a community and they allow that to, I mean, if we just followed nature and followed the
Right.
animals and everything else, we would be much better off.
And that they're inviting us to do so
Right.
all the time.
Yes.
All the time. Yeah. It's amazing
Yes.
to me. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, they are. So, I guess maybe we'll wrap it up, but like hopefully this, I know that we've mentioned quite a few different modalities that Julie and I have used or used to assist us moving forward or just standing still or sitting in that stillness of grief, and how that we're able to process those emotions. And especially during this time right now of walking into the holidays. I know it's not
Mhm.
easy. And hopefully this will give some guidance or suggestions or some recommendations as to things that you haven't thought about that can help you navigate, in this world that we're living in right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you want to get a hold of Julie, she does animal communication sessions, intuitive coaching sessions. She has a podcast, which is Mind, Body, Spirit, the Animal Communicator.
It's the Animal Communication Podcast on mindbodyspirit.fm, or you can find it on Apple or Spotify. Yeah.
And then you do grief pet.
I do pet loss grief circles, typically once a month. I don't have the next one slated yet, but I do it with my friend Carrie Kenny, who is a trauma-informed yoga instructor. And so the two of us, she helps with movement while we have the circle. So we keep it to 8 people to keep it intimate, and also really supportive, so that you can hear from your animal. But then there's themes, of course, that come out as well.
Which is fascinating, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and so your website, how they can reach you is Julie, what is it, Julie?
It's Julie Hirt, so JulieHirt-intuitive.com. You can also find me on Substack. My column that I write on Substack is called Trust the Animals, and I actually am doing special grief writings for paid subscribers, and I'm going to have some really cool things coming in 2025 for paid subscribers too, so just know that as well. So either website or Substack, you can find me, Julie Hirt Intuitive. So,
which is phenomenal. And I'll put all that information in the description. And if you want to book an animal communication session with me, or intuitive or energy clearing, which I do a lot of energy clearing, and that's with dowsing on the physical, mental, spiritual, emotional plane, please go to my website, which is ninaruberti.com, and we'll put all the information in the description below. And I will also appreciate if you like my channel, subscribe, and possibly share this to as many people, because I think this information can help a lot of people in this world as we navigate forward.
Awesome. Thanks for letting me be here today, Nina. This was wonderful.
Thank you. And I'm sending you lots of love daily. And I think Bailey is saying the same to you as well.
Yeah.
Thanks.